In a landmark move towards women's empowerment in the South African taxi industry, the National Taxi Council Women in Ugu, KwaZulu-Natal has launched an upholstery and uniform plant. This initiative not only showcases innovation and entrepreneurship, but also underscores the transformative power of women in business. Nobuhle Modise joins us live from Port Shepstone. Tell us more, Nobuhle, about this initiative.
A very good afternoon, Bravia. This is a true example of women doing it for themselves. Now, the Women's Desk of Santaco in the Ugu district decided to open up this plant to supplement, the income that they get from the taxi industries. Now, many of the women that you speak to here today would tell you stories like, I was forced into this industry, it's not by choice. My husband died and I had to take over. And this is something they're saying they need to do in order to supplement some of that income that they make from the taxis that they now own that belonged to their husband. But I do have with me the Deputy Minister of Transport, Nobuhle Modise. I want to bring him into the conversation. He said something very important earlier about, ensuring that your estate is okay before you die as a man, which in essence results in many of these women that you see here having to run businesses they have no knowledge of. Maybe expand on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Maybe at the outset, as the department, we want to congratulate the Santaco Women's Desk for this very important initiative, because it speaks to the diversifying of the transport sector generally, but the taxi industry more specifically, if you look at the initiative that they are doing. So in part of that is the work that we are currently engaged in the conversations we are having with Santaco and other taxi associations and bodies about the professionalization of the sector from a business management point of view, which therefore includes but not limited to ensuring that asset management, particularly at time of death when you go to the estates, that those matters are actually sorted out. So there's a great deal of public education that we need to do there, and we need to ensure that the Master of the High Court office comes in, because they obviously manage estates in instances where this has not been done. But writing of wills. Now, why that is critical is that, amongst others, it does give legitimacy to the widows in particular who inherit these businesses. Two, it ensures that there's continuity, and many of the issues that they have raised is that they always find themselves wanting, unable to work, and vehicles get repossessed, and so on and so forth. So that's part one. So the professionalization of the sector is not only just professionalizing along the lines of how they conduct themselves on the roads, the driver enhancement program, driver training, which is critical to road safety, but also about the longevity of the lifespan of the vehicle in itself, because if driven right, it's going to stay longer, therefore avoiding taxi recapitalization, amongst others, for them. But the other aspect which becomes critical here is the sector needs to beneficiate its expertise, and its outlook, and leverage the opportunity of that. You've got business people working together, and so by formalizing other businesses in the value chain, such as this one, where they will be creating upholstery, they're doing school uniforms. You've had Toyota coming in, placing orders, but also a self-help and self-reliance about their own branding, and so you would have heard what Mpumalanga Santaco had to say. So what we want to say is that where opportunities are available, let's exploit them. The TETA is here, the Transport Economic Training Authority, they're also here to be able to leverage the skills. What we need to do now is, how do we bring in the transport skills training with our entities, because we've also got that. So what we have seen, obviously, and you'd have heard the conversation, is that there's also a need for a perception change in so how you view the industry, the key areas of violence and the killings, and the key area of the kind of driving we witness on our roads. So this is part and parcel of that journey, wherein it is important for the taxi industry to redefine itself, recalibrate. What I was speaking about today is obviously areas around expansion of the industry. It's around professionalizing and formalizing. If you look at that 15 million South Africans commute on taxis on a daily basis, you look at the fact that it is 83% of our commuters are on taxis. So the taxi industry is important to the ecosystem, but certain things have got to change, and this is part of that change. But above and beyond is then how do you accommodate women who have to become breadwinners once the husbands have died. You have to look at the challenge of children continuing with education and ensuring that homes do not close. So it's also a poverty cycle breaker what they are doing here. And so we want to encourage that this program is replicated. And of course we continue then with the conversations around the de-risking of the financing space, because a critical challenge that has been raised by the taxi industry is around financing. The exorbitant interest rates that they have to pay for repayments of vehicle, the 700,000 rands vehicle, 25% interest rates. They are therefore chasing debt, and therefore that debt burden has to be leveraged by other revenue streams that they have to, build up in the sector like they're doing now. But the conversation that we are having is how do we then utilize the resources that we have to de-risk that kind of challenge that they have. And so we're looking at what the taxi recapitalization can do to assist. But it's conversations at infancy stage that we've had with the industry. But what is important is that they are taking action steps as well to actually build up other revenue streams for themselves.
And then you've mentioned this is a challenging sector, much more challenging for women. And we spoke to Sis Dudu Maphumulo earlier, who said since the formation of the Women's Desk in 2006, there hasn't been much change in terms of, integrating them into the space and giving them leadership positions. Your take on this?
Well, they are right. What we have experienced is that obviously the industry is very much male-dominated. It finds itself from time to time characterized and defined by instances of violence, which is criminality, which law enforcement agencies need to move in to actually break that cycle. Our belief is that the taxi industry is an important characteristic of our economy. It's the backbone of our economy. It moves people, it moves scholars, it moves goods. And then there is the added economies around it, activities of economy. You've got the taxi rank industry where you've got many people depending on the mamas who are actually having kitchens at the taxi ranks. We've got informal trading. So the taxi industry can be able to beneficiate. Now, the fact that it has taken this long for the women integration is also another indication that we need to have a paradigm shift. We need to have the hardcore conversations. We need to break the cycle of the patriarchy in the sector. I mean, one of the revelations which we already know is the hostility which is met by widows when they have to take over the businesses of their husbands and partners at death and so on. So you can see that there is progress. The fact that they are formalizing. Santaco has indicated that as they go to conference, they have placed a threshold that minimum of 30% of the positions in their leadership have to go to women. So we need to begin seeing that kind of integration. What we need to do in the department is obviously, amongst others, revive Sandwich, the women in transport and network that we have, because it not only confined to women in the taxi industry, it's about women in trucking, it's about women in e-hailing, it's about women in the busing sector, so that you can be able to ensure sustainability. Where we are concerned about is that the financing and the economics of the industry at this point in time don't make sense. The final point is that obviously through Sanral, we have been able to create a platform working with Santaco as they now prepare to go cashless. That's another important development in the taxi industry, that we're wanting to go cashless, to take cash out from circulating uncontrolled within the industry, because that's also part of formalization, to be able to build up capital, to be able to back up credit checks, which are part and parcel of the challenge that they have. And so we anticipate the rollout probably 1st of April. So it's part of the initiatives of the department in collaborating with the taxi industry. But what has been important for us coming in as the new ministry is obviously first to ensure that from a relationship point of view, we are singing from the same hymn sheet about the key priorities which we have. And one of the major priorities is road safety. We are going to the Easter weekend, but it is finding itself punctuated by 3 other long weekends. So we've got 4 long weekends within the next few weeks. We all know what that means. There's heightened travel on our roads, and so the risks are major. And so part of the conversations we've been having and why we are participating is to actually draw their attention to the need of professionalizing and driver enhancement of the practitioners, which are the drivers in the taxi space, to make sure that they play their part. In the end, the whole ecosystem has to work, because if you deal with road fatalities and accidents by inducing driver behavior, doing all those things, you then ease off the challenges, amongst others, on the road accident fund. You are able to assist hospitals by not having to focus their attentions on heightened trauma interventions, particularly at high strain periods. So the whole reality of the road accidents, the taxi industry must understand, as I believe it does, the importance of it. That is why they've been participating in our programs of road safety, and this is a relationship that we continuously have to have. So in our view, we are moving closer into working with the taxi industry because we recognize its key centrality to the economy, but in other areas as well, as we have seen. And so I want to congratulate really the Women's Desk, and I'm sure that moving forward we'll find other ways and means of providing support and ensuring that there is interventions. And I believe that incubation programs through small business development needs to come in here to make sure that we enhance the business practices in order to ensure longevity of these businesses that they are doing. So it's not just about being on the road. We believe that the taxi industry is also a vehicle for transformation, access and inclusivity in the economy.
Thank you very much. That is the Deputy Minister of Transport in the country, Nobuhle Modise, just speaking to us about their involvement and how he feels about this initiative that's been launched here today. And as you can see behind me, this is the plant where some of these women will be working from. But for now, I'll throw it back to you in the studio. Bravo.